I guess in today's world, nobody would underestimate the importance of advertisements. It's everywhere and it is here for a reason. In the age of the developed capitalism and consumerism, it's important not only to develop a high quality product, it's important to tell everybody else around the world that this is your product and there are reasons to buy it. And even the biggest and most established companies need it. For example, have you ever thought why there are Apple advertisements out there? Apple is one of the biggest companies in the world. Everybody knows it. Everybody has iPhones. But at the same time, for Apple, it's important to engrave the fact of the existing of the company, of its devices in the minds of people, such that the cache in your mind is not cleared, and each single time it is being reminded that, hey, the company exists, it's out there, it's running, it's developing new devices. Essentially, every idea of engraving certain ideas to people's mind work that way, like propaganda, like everything. You are constantly being reminded, such that subconsciously you are thinking about it. And this something comes to your mind when you don't even think about it. But then it goes and yeah, you remember, Apple, iPhone, yeah, I would like to buy it. And generally, there are multiple ways in the advertisement industry to persuade us to buy things we don't need and that we don't have money on. And usually, it all comes down to playing on our emotions. For example, car advertisements work the way that they are persuading us that buying a new car would make us a different person, that we'll start living a different life, and we will essentially have experience that we don't have right now. All you need is just to buy a new car. Food advertisements work that way. They essentially visualize the food and the taste in your screen such that you would like just to jump into your screen and eat everything because it's so vivid, it's so bright, so much colors, so smooth, like delicious. Another very popular type of advertisement today is through evoking emotions. It is not necessarily important what emotions you evoke, it's rather important that this happens. And after all, this attracts people's attention to the brand. There are many examples of such companies using this approach: Nike, Adidas, other companies. And the main idea here is just to attract attention, such that just imagine what would happen if you saw a naked man walking down the street. It probably would catch your attention because it's something different, it's something outstanding, something you don't see every day. And if there was a Nike logo on the man, that probably would attract your attention and subsequently attract attention to Nike. And in fact, the father of such advertisements is Oliviero Toscani, who in 80s developed essentially a new way of advertisement for United Colors of Benetton. But before we start, it's important to get some context on what was going on with the company, and for that I will tell a short story of the company up to that period. In the 60s, a young Luciano Benetton was working at a clothing store, and he observed that clothes people were wearing had mostly dull colors: black, gray, brown, and so on. People definitely craved for some colorful options. That's why, seeing the market gap, Luciano and his sister Giuliano, who was a skilled knitter luckily, started selling door-to-door solid color sweaters made of high-quality Italian wool. The business appeared to be so successful that in 1965 they established a company called Knitwear Factory of Ponzano Veneto, well, only in Italian, following by opening a first store in Belluno in 1966. The success was achieved through bright, eye-catching designs, high quality and high durability of sweaters, and premium feel at a relatively available price. Also, they utilized an innovative approach to production of their clothes by dyeing after knitting, which allowed the company to be more flexible and respond to demands better. In addition, the company became a franchise, and in 1968, it was renamed into Benetton Group, becoming a successfully family business. And now imagine, there is a quite successful family business, a company that has its marketplace, that has its customers, that is using a quite innovative approach for producing the clothes. Essentially, quite successful business, but still being quite average among other fashion brands and not being something outstanding, something ridiculous. And then it releases the following advertisement. And then this one. Do you think this attracted attention? Hell yeah, it did. And the reason behind such advertisements was Oliviero Toscani. But who the fuck is Oliviero Toscani? Oliviero grew up in post-war Italy, surrounded by journalism and photography. His father was a photojournalist in one of the prestigious Italian newspapers, and this had a tremendous impact on young Oliviero, developing his artistic vision and interest in photography. He studied design and photography in Zurich, and after graduation he started making reportage pictures, which appeared to be quite noticeable. So he was invited to work for major fashion magazines like Vogue, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar. I think that's the way it's called. I realized that it all sounds like a dream path for a creative person, being surrounded by his favorite art from childhood and then building a very successful creative career in his early years. In 1973, he was hired to create an advertisement campaign for Jesus jeans, and this was his first work where his socially provocative style was used. It was a close-up image of a woman's backside in jeans, featured the following quote: "Whoever loves me, follow me," being a reference to one of the Jesus quote from the Bible. Obviously, this couldn't go unnoticed, and this made people talk about the advertisement. But for Toscani, this was only his first work among many others bold and sharp advertisements. And now imagine, what will happen if you combine a person who is creative and would like to make bold social statements? A company that is pretty average but is looking for something new, is looking for establishing itself on the market and growing into something bigger, to positioning itself as something new, as the young generation, young way, and the money that it has and the resources it has. What will happen? Indeed, there will be a revolution in the industry of advertisement that Toscani did with Benetton. The first Toscani campaign for Benetton, all the colors of the world, wasn't that bold, but it was attracting attention, and it was important for the company that was aiming to position and represent itself as a brand targeting multiculturalism, diversity, inclusivity, and all the different people around the world, essentially. This concept suited the company very well, as it was selling colorful clothes, so the idea of all the colors of the world was very natural here. It included images of people of different backgrounds together, highlighting the ideas of mutual coexistence in the new, colorful world of the future. The company even changed its name from Benetton to United Color of Benetton. This campaign also appeared to be very important from the standpoint of how Toscani approached fashion advertising, as it paved the road for future, more bold Benetton campaigns, focusing less on clothes and glamorous looks so common these days, but rather on social messages and controversial topics, and subsequently attracting attention through them. In fact, the advertisements of Toscani were not advertisements in the common understanding of the word, aiming to promote the brand and good qualities of its products, screaming, "Buy me, I'm the best on the market." But instead, these were images highlighting various social, economical, and political topics like religion, famine, poverty, racism, attitudes towards homosexuals, war, and many more. And the main idea here was to find something sensitive for the society and strike directly into it. And essentially, this was the reason for the success. I guess you can probably imagine what happened when, in a fairly conservative Italy, where religion plays quite an important role in the society, appeared an image, the advertisement, with a priest kissing a nun. I don't think there is any need to explain what was the idea behind such a provocative image. As you can probably guess, there was a tremendously negative reaction from religious communities all around the world, and a backlash with boycotts of the brand. The Vatican called the advertisement deeply offensive and considered it an attack on religious devotion. There were attempts to ban the advertisement, and cases of vandalism aimed at Benetton stores took place. But at the end of the day, no legal actions were taken against the advertisement, as there were no such laws in Italy prohibiting it. But the brand achieved what it wanted: the publicity. Generally, you may find quite a lot of Toscani's quotes and statements about church and religion, and in most of them he was very critical and very unhumble about them. And actually, he thought that advertisements should not only sell products, but also provoke thoughts and provoke discussions in society about some controversial topics. This way appeared a series of advertisements aiming to promote awareness about HIV and AIDS diseases. In the 80s and 90s of the previous century, the topic of these diseases was a taboo, and people having these diseases were significantly stigmatized. They essentially didn't consider it to be normal. It was considered to be a gay disease. And despite all of the potential negative reaction, or in case of Toscani, in favor it, Benetton's advertisements featured people with HIV-positive tattoos on them, drawing a strong parallel with the Nazi labels during World War II, essentially highlighting the chauvinistic attitudes in the society towards these people. And one of the most prominent advertisements of the 90s that is considered to play a decent role in drawing people's attention to the HIV and AIDS epidemics around the world is the image of the HIV activist David Kirby, lying in the deathbed being surrounded by his family. The image itself was not taken for Benetton and even had been previously published in Life magazine a year before. But it was Toscani and Benetton who licensed it, colored and introduced the image to the larger audience for advertising purposes. The image caught tremendous attention because it significantly resembled the Christian subject of the Virgin Mary, cradling the body of Jesus. The reaction of public and religious groups was expected, with many seeing it as a mockery of religious imagery and exploiting suffering for commercial purposes, while health organizations praised raising the public's awareness about the AIDS problem. Interestingly enough, the Kirby's family was not against Benetton using the image for the advertising purposes. Actually, they said that they were grateful for Benetton raising the awareness about the HIV problem, and they said that this is something that David would want it. In 1993, Toscani put a huge condom on the obelisk in the Place de la Concorde in Paris for World AIDS Day, and an image with many colorful condoms was released in 1991 to attract attention to the problem of AIDS. It may sound bizarre in today's world, but condoms were not that common back then, and subsequently there was an epidemic. As you can probably guess, besides the public's disapproval of the advertisements, the Benetton stores and the advertisements suffered a lot of vandalism, being painted, written on, defaced, and just destroyed because of their brave form and the controversial themes they raised. The company also faced hard censorship and even legal cases because of what its advertisements displayed. One of the most censored images used in the Benetton's advertisement campaigns was the image of a newborn baby still attached to the umbilical cord. And I won't show you the image because I would get banned rather sooner than later, but it was just ridiculous, and the reaction was just ridiculous. As well as the image of the blood-stained clothes of a Croatian soldier fighting in the Balkans War. According to Toscani, he received a message from a 22-year-old girl from Sarajevo with a request to raise attention to the conflict, as every time he took photos, people were speaking about them. In multiple countries, the image faced a huge backlash and subsequently banned. Interestingly enough, that despite the fact that in most cases the advertisements were met with a negative emotion, the popularity of Benetton actually increased. The brand positioned itself as something rebellious, something of a youth, something that challenges social mores and raises social topics, and subsequently it played positively on the revenue. It was a great example of how in most cases the fact that you are having negative or positive publicity does not matter. It's just important that it is present and that it is active, so everybody speaks about you or about your brand. Nevertheless, it's important to speak about the death penalty campaign that was the biggest in terms of the reaction towards the advertisement, and the biggest in terms of consequences for the company, marking the departure of Toscani from the marketing department of the brand. These were portraits of 26 prisoners that had been sentenced to death. Once they were released, the company faced immeasurably huge social condemnation, as a lot of people saw it as glorifying murderers. that were the majority of the prisoners. The Missouri court filed a case against Benetton as the company had lied about the real reason for taking photos. It was a huge reputational and financial damage. Major United States retailers refused to sell Benetton clothes, which led to significant decline in revenue, and the victim's family were obviously outraged with the situation. Multiple people appeared on TV calling to boycott Benetton. The company had to issue public apologies, obviously remove the advertisements, and generally shift to a more conservative way of promoting itself. And even despite such a strong backlash against the advertisement, Oliviero never apologized for it, and nor for any of his other advertisements and campaigns. He said that he greatly condemns the idea of death penalty, and he wanted to show that people on the death row are real people with their emotions, and that death penalty is not something that takes place occasionally in news. And generally, according to his interview, he wanted to achieve the United Nations moratorium on death penalty. Throughout the video, I avoided stating my opinion about the advertisements, about Oliviero, about the United Colors of Benetton and their messages in them. And it's not that I don't really have opinions about them, no, it's just, for me, it's more interesting to look at the advertisements as I often look at pieces of art. And I consider these advertisements pieces of art. For me, it's more interesting to look at them how, scientists look at some new things. In the context of the world they exist, first of all, and without evaluating if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. For me, the fact that this advertisements called so much emotions and such resonance in the society is already an interesting thing and already a good thing. And I personally think that art should evoke emotions, maybe in the creator, maybe in the audience of the art. At the same time, it's really understandable for me why this was such a backlash, because, well, these are advertisements, they have the Benetton label on them, and, well, they really used socially sensitive topics to sell sweaters. I don't want to go it this way, but, it's hard to unsee this fact that besides promoting very sensitive and very important topics and stating messages, one of the main ideas was actually to improve the revenue. Let's not forget about it. But at the same time, I agree with Toscani, who said that the fact that it causes such resonance in the society means that there is something to be discussed in the society, and I cannot agree more about it. And while I was preparing this video, I realized that throughout each single interview, Oliviero was not really interested in making good advertisements. He actually called himself the worst possible advertiser that you can imagine. The thing that he was mostly interested in, and that thing that he was actively doing, is making social statements. And this is just a situation when a huge brand and a creator appear to coexist and essentially exploiting each other. Benetton for selling clothes, Oliviero for having a platform for making statements. And I don't really think that discussing if we should allow or disapprove such things, well, I don't think these discussions would lead us anywhere. They happen all the time with another new movie, new video, or new something appear, and people, well, essentially starting huge debates in the internet talking, no, this is too much, or somebody saying, no, this is not too much, this is just this is okay. There is also this thing that if it was just some social campaign without the Benetton labels on them, that would have called way less emotions and the reaction would have been way smaller, and I guess Toscani perfectly understood this. But at the same time, the reason why they called so many emotions and why there was such a huge resonance in the society is because there were Benetton labels on the images. And actually, the fact that they had them made such a resonance. And, well, let's be honest, I guess it's just better than somebody learned about some social problem than essentially not knowing about it. Maybe for a centimeter, but it definitely contributed to the world. And I guess this is at least something good. But again, I don't think it's proper to look at them as good or bad. Well, they existed, didn't they?